There's apps for dog sitting and stuff like that. Have you ever heard of them? You can make money sitting dogs. That's how when we first moved to Toronto with my girlfriend, neither of us had jobs, and we signed up for this app called Rover. And we made a profile and stuff, and so these people started contacting us, and we started like dog sitting for people. Sometimes 2 weeks, sometimes 2 days, and so all these dogs were at our place. We weren't supposed to have them. It was a sublet.
But like, what was your guys' like dog experience? Because what intimidates me about, like, I love dogs, but I'm like, if a dog is acting out or like being an asshole, like, I don't know if I could control that situation. Like, I don't mind watching Coco because she's super easy, you know, just.
We haven't had a problem. Our very first dog that we house sat was named Charlie, and he was like this 10-year-old, pretty like aggressive dog. He didn't like being alone, so whenever we would leave the house, it was like a 22-story apartment building in Toronto. We would leave for like, I don't know, 15 minutes, and you could hear him bark from like downstairs. You could hear him.
Shit.
And so we would have to like rush wherever we're going and come back. One of us had to stay with him. But he wasn't like, he didn't bite anybody or anything. Like, he just didn't like being alone.
Okay.
Yeah.
A little bit codependent.
Very, very much so. Yeah. And then we just continued doing that for like 3 or 4 months. It was a crazy time because before that we were both in school. In the other coast of Canada. So Toronto's kind of like on the east coast.
It's kind of like the New York of Canada, right? Is what they.
Yeah. It's a bit like Chicago. It's it's cold, windy, frozen.
Yeah.
But yeah, like we were doing the dog sitting, and then have you ever heard of like brand ambassadors? You know?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm on Instagram.
Okay, but on the street, like experiential marketing, like people giving out flyers and stuff like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. So I was just like looking at ads for like stuff like that. I was flyering, and I found this person who was looking to hire somebody to like put together a team on behalf of Amazon because they're opening like a factory or something, and they needed people. And so the person was in the States, so I never actually met him. I just talked to him on the phone. He sent me like I don't know, like 50 boxes of flyers in our 1-bedroom apartment. In the middle of the winter, I had to like go get them in the cold in this like middle of nowhere place, and I bring the boxes back, and there's 50,000 flyers, and I need to distribute all of them. And the only proof that he asked that you distribute is that somebody takes photos of you. Like, you need 200 photos of you flyering people. But here's the thing. People don't actually need to take the flyers. Like, he never knows.
Yeah.
So my girlfriend and I, because we were both unemployed at the time, she was on camera duty and I was on flyer duty, and I would just stand by the subway entrance and I would go like this to everybody. I didn't even say anything. I just went like this, and people would look at me like, "What is this guy?" And I was just like this, and she would snap photo, and 200 photos like that. We would be done in like an hour because it's a busy station.
Yeah.
We handed out maybe like 100 flyers out of the 50,000, and then a lot of recycling.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna ask, like, how do you get rid of 50,000 flyers?
We didn't, but we got.
But I mean, like afterwards, it's still trash in your apartment. Like,
yeah, I mean, we had to take them downstairs and put them in the recycling.
Like, your neighbors are like, "Why are there all these flyers in here?"
For sure, we had some neighbors who were like, "Oh, Amazon is hiring."
Not the strategy Amazon thought they were going to use. People are finding our advertising in the trash.
For sure.
Yeah.
That was a sweet gig because We were supposed to like like have a team that we hired to do this, but I just got all my friends, and so they did the same thing, like just pose with the flyers though. Also you can like put it on cars. The fly you could put it on the car, on the windshield.
And how much would you get for doing like 50,000 flyers?
So the whole contract just for me paid $4K. But then I also paid my friends. I don't know how much they made. And my girlfriend made a couple K from that too. So it was like a 2-month contract.
Take that, Jeff Bezos.
Exactly.
Wait, okay, so before we go any further, just quickly, can you like introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, a little bit about you?
My name is Dan Belkin. I am most recently from Canada. That's where I spent most of my life since I was 11 years old.
Okay.
Yeah, on the West Coast, Vancouver. I moved there when I was 11 from Israel.
Okay.
Yes, I was born there. And my parents are from the old Soviet Union, from modern day Ukraine.
Okay.
Yeah. But when we moved to Canada, like at home, we spoke Russian, and because like nobody spoke Russian, I picked up English very fast.
Yeah, but do you also speak Israeli then?
Hebrew.
Or Hebrew? Sorry.
I do, but I'm still fluent in understanding, but I've gained a massive accent now, and I'm like sometimes whenever I'm like trying to pick out words, I lose some of it because I don't have any practice at home. We don't really speak it. I go there to Israel every couple of years. I still have some family, and so I get some practice when I'm there. But lately, the last couple times I went, people will actually start speaking to me in English because they can hear my accent. Crazy, yeah.
And is that nice? Are you like, thank you, I would rather speak in English? Or are you like, no, I want to fucking do the thing?
I don't want to lose the language. And also, like, Israelis are...
You're like, I don't want to be unchosen. I'm fucking chosen, bro.
Yeah, like, I did my time here. 11 years in this shithole. No, they're also... Israelis are like... They can be dickheads to foreigners, especially, like, people with North American accents. They don't like them. I guess like everywhere in the world. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know, but it's strange going back there now though, because like I see everything now from my North American perspective, and so a lot of things I'm like, why? Like people can't form a line, like whenever say there's at the train station there's a booth that sells tickets or whatever, people are just kind of like they just go to the booth.
Everybody's just kind of like trying to get their way.
It's kind of like like a bazaar mentality.
Yeah.
When you're at a bazaar in Israel, everyone's like yelling their prices, tomato, blah blah. Everyone's haggling and like trying to rip each other off. It's crazy, and that mentality is everywhere you go. It could be at the bus stop. It could be just at the bookstore. All of a sudden you're like.
So did you get yourself into trouble when you moved to Canada? Because I don't know, from a Western or like a German perspective, like if someone cuts in line, I'm like, what the fuck? Like I'm not a confrontational person, but that's like one of the few times I might say something, where I'm like, hey, there's a line.
For sure. I was,
and so I can imagine if you show up and you think the thing is just like, yeah, these idiots are just standing here. I could just go.
Yeah. Total mind warp. Even like the way you respond, like in Canada, if you didn't understand something, you say like, pardon me.
Yeah.
Or excuse me, like say it again. I was sitting in grade 6 when I came in my class. Mr. Takasaki was my teacher. Really kind Japanese gentleman, very like Zen and stuff. And he was saying something in class, and I didn't hear what he said. I was maybe like 4 or 5 months into living there. And in the middle of the class, because I didn't hear what he said, I didn't really got what he said. So I said, what? Like that. Just like, what? like interrupted the whole class, which was very normal in Israel.
Yeah.
When you don't understand what the teacher said, you just, what?
Yeah.
What? And the teacher would repeat what they would say. But here, he was like shocked that I interrupted the
Students
class.
were gasping like,
For sure. and I remember he was like, in Canada we say pardon me. And that was my lesson.
I feel like there was a kinder way for him to that does kind of feel like you're like, you fucking savage.
Yeah.
But that's an interesting I wanted to ask about. So like when you moved over, 11 is like a hard, I would say for me personally, like 11 and 12 were like maybe two of my toughest years in like my, just like I felt so awkward.
Yeah.
You know, really like.
What were you into at 11, 12?
So 11, 12 was like when I was taking this turn of getting into sports. When I was like,
in San Francisco. Baseball, 49ers.
San Francisco Giants, the baseball team.
The 49ers are the football team.
49ers are the football team. But I was Giants and then Raiders, Oakland Raiders.
Okay.
So I had a little Oakland allegiance, San Francisco, because we didn't live in the city. We lived like an hour outside.
So you played baseball?
I played baseball terribly, actually. That's he has a story slam coming up. I think I'm going to tell a story about playing baseball, although it doesn't really translate well in Europe because people don't understand a lot of the references. But
what is baseball?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like trying to like, I think at that age, like be like, what is it? Like, what do guys like? And I was like, sports. And so I was like, okay, I'm going all in on sports. But my point is, it was an awkward age. And I can't imagine at that age if my parents were like, okay, we're going to go to a whole new country, whole new, like very...
Especially where I lived, it was so different. So in the West Coast, Vancouver specifically has a lot of people from Hong Kong, from Taiwan.
Yeah.
And the suburb where I lived, Richmond, was like, I want to say my schools were all like 90% kids from those countries, like Hong Kong, Taiwan, Macau, China. And a lot of times they would speak Mandarin or Cantonese to each other, not even English. Like they could speak English, but to each other they spoke that. And I was also into sports. I played basketball.
Okay.
So I was this short kid from Israel. They didn't know where Israel was. They didn't know what Israel is. They thought I was from Australia. They're like, oh, I was like, where are you from? I was like, Israel. They're like, Australia. Yeah. So I was like, all right, Australia. I'll go.
Well, that's what they say about Israel, right? Like it's the Australia of the Middle East, you know?
Yeah. Things could kill you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
but that I had a similar, like when the first time I went to Vancouver, I went to like a grocery store or something, and like a bunch of the signs were in, I don't know, Mandarin or something, and I was like, I don't know, I had no idea there was such a huge population of immigrants there.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason why I picked up English so fast was because, like, if I wanted to even like talk to somebody, it was already like a struggle because they might not want to talk to you because they have their friends who speak the same language, and so like it's absolutely necessary because there's already a block in the way. Yeah.
So and did you speak no English before, or like
very little?
Very little.
Very little, because we just started doing English in like grade 2 there in Israel, and I was like in grade 6 when I moved. So I had a couple of years of like class, but it was very elementary, elementary school. So I was playing basketball a lot, and that was nice because it's a common kind of language with sports.
Totally.
And so I had some
pick up a couple vocabs.
Yes,
pass
for sure.
I'm open.
For sure. I only knew like the bad stuff. I knew how to say "Tsao ni ma de." I think it means "fuck your mom," and and I know "Du lei lo mo," which was like swallow your lung or swallow your heart or something like that.
Okay.
Which it's like really bad in Mandarin, I think, or Cantonese. Yeah. And so I remember I made friends with one of the more like athletic bro-y guys, and he would like swear a lot, and he was this huge dude from like mainland China, and he would walk down the hallways and he would sing "Tsao ni ma tamada," which just translates "fuck your mom" or something. I don't know. And so I would do the same thing. And then one time he wasn't there or something, and it was recess, and I was like, I guess, playing with another group of also kids from China, and I scored a basket. And I was like, "Tell me, mother," and they didn't like that. So
you needed your enforcer with you.
Yes.
And that's actually kind of also genius then, because they could swear, and like the teachers mostly.
The teachers were also from like
okay.
different Asian countries. I mean, Mr. Takasaki was Japanese, so
Yeah.
he didn't understand, or maybe he probably understood, but like he didn't.
I guess also, I mean, even when you said it, I'm like, okay, I don't know exactly the context, but it's something.
Yes.
That's like, go fuck yourself, or.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, basketball was like the thing
That was
kind
your
of
road
conveyed
in.
Yeah.
Why did your parents choose for you guys to, or did they choose, like, what led you guys to Canada?
Well, when they first like moved from the Soviet Union was like before I was even born, like 91, 92 was when it was all breaking apart, the Soviet Union. There was a huge wave of migration from there to Israel. All the Jews basically moved, and so there's huge communities from the old Soviet countries living in Israel still to this day, a lot, but they weren't aware of like the political situation and like how dangerous it was. And they started being aware once I was born. Obviously, things were happening. And then when I got to like age 6, 7, it really popped off. There was like the second Intifada. There was a lot of like war stuff. Every day something was happening. And so they're like, this is no good. And also, it's like a really
we were trying to get out of this.
Exactly. And it's like incredibly expensive. It's an expensive country as well. Mm-hmm. So like the fact that they felt like there wasn't any way for them to like advance. They're both like nurses, which they were happy doing that. And in Canada they made a good life with that. But in Israel it was tough to like, mobility.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And on top of that, it was just crazy stuff was happening every day during that time.
Well, I wonder also, like, if I were a parent in Israel, like, the fact that, like, knowing that you would have to go into the military, like, if we stay here, you're going to have to, like,
For sure.
go fight.
Yeah, that's how my dad got out of it, was when he came to Israel, he was like 19 or something. He was already with my mom. He did a year of military service, but he was, like, in the non-fighting forces. I think he, drove supplies or something.
Yeah.
He found out that if your spouse or something is pregnant, you get to like not be in the military.
He's like, we gotta have a baby.
Yeah. So that's how he got out of that.
Was that you? Are you that baby?
I was that baby.
you were his get out of jail free card.
For sure. Yeah. And he was like 20 at the time. My mom's a bit older. She was like 24.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're like, we didn't want you, but I wanted to not be in the military more than I wanted to.
Yeah. Actually, Daniel in Hebrew means peace. No, it doesn't.
I was going to go with you, Hunter. I was like, really? It means hall pass.
Yeah, it means two-state solution. Yeah. No.
Okay, so yeah, they're like, this is kind of crazy here. We wanted to... we want to go somewhere a little bit more chill, and it doesn't get more chill than Vancouver. Really.
For sure, yeah. It's like the mountains and the water, and you got everything is like lots of space. Yeah.
Were you pissed when they moved? Because like you're old enough to like understand what's happening. You're leaving your friends.
For sure, I had my first crush that I had a crush since like grade 2.
What was her name?
Gali. And like by grade 5 I got the courage to talk to her.
Okay.
Yeah, I was like talking to her like almost every day.
Okay.
It took like 3 or 4 years of building up to that.
This was a long game. You were doing the long play.
For sure. And then all of a sudden we're like moving away. I was like, what? All of this work.
Well, shout out Gali if you're watching,
Yes.
What could have been.
Yeah.
Sorry.
For sure. She's happily married with children now. But yeah, like I was definitely pissed. And also like in Israel, there's like a very tight knit culture. Part of it is because we share this language that's not spoken anywhere, right?
Yeah.
It's like only in that small strip of land anybody speaks Hebrew. So like our TV at the time, and there's no like really strong internet culture. There's internet but there's no like content online. So all of our content, everyone watched it in Israel because it was on TV, you know. So if something funny, some show or something, a comedian or something like that, everyone would know them. And so at school, we all had the same inside jokes. Oh, we were doing the same impressions.
Everybody knew the references.
Yes, it was so tight knit, you know. And in Canada, first of all, there was no strong TV culture, and secondly, it's so far spread that if something was like big in Toronto, we might not hear about it in Vancouver.
Yeah.
We had one TV station called Much Music, which was like MTV kind of,
Yeah.
and so like that was a thing where, you know, you had some shows that people watch from there. There was like a show called Video on Trial. Shout out Video on Trial. Yeah.
Get in the comments, video on trial.
Video on Trial. And so like that was something that you could like share and talk about. But for the most part, we consumed American media and everyone had different tastes. So there was no common ground for like, oh, did you watch that show? No, I didn't.
Yeah.
You know? So that was a big difference for me, was like not knowing what to talk about at recess. Everyone had different flavors of stuff they liked. It wasn't as like singular.
And was there American media that you were also consuming in Israel that like carried over? Or was it like, was when you went to Canada, was that like your first exposure to like...
I've obviously, all of our movies come from the States, you know, everywhere in the world, I think.
Because we're number one.
Number one, USA. But in terms of TV shows, yeah, like I've definitely seen some reruns of famous TV shows in Israel, American TV shows. But I've never seen, I don't know, like Lost or anything. Even though it was a thing, like at 11, I didn't watch it, you know. Versus like in Canada, even like 11-year-olds might watch Lost because that was like the content that was available to us.
Yeah.
There wasn't so much content in Canada that was like made for 11, 12-year-olds.
Yeah.
That was like singularly consumed by everybody.
I feel like also, maybe I'm dating myself, but I feel like this was a different era. It was the last era of this being the case where it was like a show like Lost would be like, my parents, my brother, my sister, and I are all going to sit down every Thursday night at 8 and watch the new episode of Lost, you know, or whatever. Like this kind
Prison Break or whatever.
Yeah, Prison Break.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to remember like the first show that I watched like that religiously. I couldn't get into it at first because I didn't have the language, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing I watched was cartoons. It was like Simpsons, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Simpsons. South Park was huge, and I hated South Park at first because they always made fun of Jews. They were like, you stupid Jew, this and that, and I was like, people here are anti-Semitic.
It's true what they say.
Yes, they hate us. We have to go back.
Yeah.
So Jew jokes were huge when I came to Canada, and which was funny because I didn't even know where Israel was.
Yeah.
So, but they knew what a Jew was, kind of.
Yeah.
You know,
they knew the archetype enough to make a joke.
Yeah, and then when I was like in grade 8, Borat came out.
Oh yeah.
And I actually loved Borat. I thought it was hilarious. I saw it. I was like, this is the funniest thing ever. And then like a week later, it like really popped off, and everybody in my high school saw that, and they came up to me and they're like, is this true that you guys have the run of the Jews? I'm like, what do you mean you guys? It was in Kazakhstan. Why would we do the run of the Jews in Israel? It doesn't make any sense.
They're like, we don't know how far you run.
Yeah.
That is true. I mean, that era also was like, I don't know, maybe high school kids are still making dumb like Jew jokes, but I feel like the wheelhouse at my high school was, as you're saying, Borat coming out, like, you know, this kind of Jew thing, and then everything was like gay or faggy or what, you know, like these were the wheelhouse.
For sure. I remember it started changing because we started high school early in grade 8 in Canada, where I lived. Maybe on the East Coast, there's middle school, but on the West Coast, it was like high school right away. And we had something called Pink Shirt Day, which was like anti-homophobic bullying day. And it was the start of you can't say gay or whatever. And that started being a thing, but there wasn't like no Star of David Day. Like it was still, it was still like, yeah, you stupid Jew, you know? Yeah.
Don't be homophobic, you stupid Jew.
Yes,
Yeah, like,
exactly.
Yeah. So when did you start? Was there a point where you started to feel like Canada felt like home, or that you were comfortable? I guess maybe a better question is like, now do you feel Canadian, or do you feel
I definitely
Israeli, or?
don't feel Israeli anymore. I feel much more Jewish now than I did before, even more Jewish than when I lived in Israel. But I don't feel Israeli, and that started changing maybe around the time I was like 16. I started thinking in English. My dreams started being in English.
Yeah.
I lost any kind of accent. And the opposite started happening. I would go to Israel and I would notice these things like the rudeness and the people cutting each other in line and like the kind of like Middle Eastern mentality.
Like, it's actually not so great for these Palestinians.
Yeah, I didn't even notice that yet. It was only internally that I started noticing the bad. So,
Like the cultural difference, kind
yeah,
of. Yeah.
Just that was already like a thing of like, oh, I don't like that.
Yeah.
You know? And also the friends that I had from when I was 11, by the time I was 16, were like growing apart. Gotti had a boyfriend. Yeah. So I would come visit, and like it was harder to find a common language with them. But the time that I came when I was 16, there was one instance where I felt like, I kind of missed this, which was there was this celebration called Lag BaOmer, which is like a bonfire celebration. You do these huge bonfires, and you stay up all night at the bonfire. And at the time in Canada, I wasn't in with the people who did parties yet. So my friends that I still had in Israel who were planning these bonfires, they were going to do an all-night thing with drinking, and it was like my first like thing like that.
Yeah.
But my mom changed her mind last second. Like I was supposed to go there, and the day of, she was like, "You can't go," or whatever. And so I like snuck out. I was waited till they fell asleep at our. It wasn't even a hotel. It was just like an Airbnb. And so I snuck out, and like I ran across town at like midnight, and I went, and they're like, "Who is this guy?" And I'm like, "I'm Daniel. Remember me?" And they're like, "From Canada?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I got a Facebook invite." And I just showed up, and then we started drinking, making jokes, and it was like a fun time getting drunk. And then I look at the clock, the sun started coming up like 5 or 6 a.m. I'm like, oh no, I gotta get back to the house. So I started sprinting, and I'm like, it's getting sunnier and sunnier. I'm scared I'm a little bit drunk too. And this cab, like just in front of me, pulls up, and I like wave it down. I had exactly 20 shekels. That's like $7 or something.
Yeah.
And I'm like, is this enough to get me to such and such place? He's like, fine, come in. And so he dropped me off, sneak back into bed. All good. Never got caught, except for now.
Sorry, Mom.
Yes. But at that point, there was like a camaraderie because of the Jewish holiday of the bonfire.
Yeah.
And you have to like, whoever shows up to the bonfire, you have to accept them. So
Yeah.
I show up. Yeah, come in, you know?
They're like, who are you? All right.
Yes. Yeah, whatever, man. Grab some drinks.
Yeah.
And so, like, I don't think, like, if I showed up to a Halloween party, for example, in Canada, just like that it would be like that. you
Yeah,
know?
totally. Well, that's also maybe an interesting thing about the, I don't know, whatever this shared heritage thing, right?
For sure.
That it
Holidays are huge. Like there's so many holidays in the Jewish tradition. And so especially when you're a kid in school, you're like, that's time off school. And that's like, you're getting together with your friends, you're doing parties. When you're a kid, it's
Yeah.
like, it's just like kid parties. But still, like Hanukkah, 8 days off of school.
Yeah.
And then you have Passover, that's like 2.5 weeks off of school.
So my mom used to teach at a Jewish day school, and she, like, it was the third school she had worked at, and then she worked there for like 15 years. And one of her biggest things, like towards the end, they kept switching the administration, and it was like, it was a bit of a nightmare. But she was like, she was really hanging on because she was like, there's just so many holidays.
It's great.
so many days off.
Yeah.
Like, plus summer, the normal
Yeah.
teacher, like you have the summer
And
off
there's
thing.
strikes all the time. It's great, because in Jewish culture we like complain a lot, So every 4 months there's something. It's like, oh, the teachers aren't getting enough smoke breaks or something back then,
So around 16, you start to notice this, like...
I'm starting to feel more Canadian.
You're
I'm starting to say,
feel-
pardon me, excuse me,
Yeah.
sorry.
You say thank you to the bus driver when you get off the bus.
Exactly.
Yes.
Because that blew my mind when I first came to Canada. People say thank you to the bus driver. And then I started doing it when I came to Israel, almost like in spite, because there nobody says
Yeah.
that. You just push your way out of the bus. And I started being like, thank you. And now I do it like obnoxiously. I'm like, thank you every time I get off the
And they're
bus.
like, what's your problem?
I'm like, I'm being nice obnoxiously.
I want you to know I appreciate you.
Yes.
So then, did you like go to college or what?
Yeah, I mean, first I had to like finish high school.
Yeah.
But
You're like, stop rushing me through the story.
No, I did. I went to college, not like so I lived on the mainland, which is
Yeah.
Vancouver, and then there's Vancouver Island. It's this huge,
Yeah.
humongous piece of land that's separated by. You have to take a ferry, basically. It's a 2-hour ferry, and then you also have to drive. It's like 4 hours
Yeah.
altogether.
I've been to Victoria and Tofino.
Okay, so
Beautiful.
I went to school in Victoria.
Okay.
Which is like
nice.
a government town, college town. I think the student population is like 20,000 and the whole city's population is 80,000. So in the summer when all the students leave, it's like a quarter less of the population, but you get this huge tourist wave.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a ferry that comes from the States, all these people going to
Yeah.
Alaska and stuff, all these old people. The half of the economy is in the summertime, tourists.
Yeah.
That's where I went to college, and first I was like trying to do
And were you like? I guess what I wanted to ask with like about you going to school is like when that came up, did you have any thought of like, oh, like should I think about like going back to Israel, or I mean, your parents
No.
have ties in Europe, or
Not at
you
all.
were just like,
At that point, I was like, I don't want to go to the military. And at that point, I started being more conscious of the actual conflict. Because before all of that, all the things that I started noticing that I didn't like weren't even to do with the conflict. It's just like, I don't like the culture. I don't like how pushy everybody is. And then I started to like learn more about what's happening. And I was like, oh, I don't like this conflict at all. I don't like how people are going about handling it,
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I just didn't want anything to do with that.
so you're like Vancouver Island.
I became a BC West Coast dude,
Yeah.
So like I would wear thrift clothes and
Is it you on Facebook? You have like this photo of you like juggling.
yes, that's me.
Yeah.
I was big into juggling.
Because I saw that before I think I even met you, and I was kind of like, as a West Coast dude who spent a little time in BC, I was like, my man.
Hacky sack.
I feel like in 2010, 2011, we would have really like hung out.
Dude, I used to have a man bun just like you before I started balding, like
I spun a little poi,
Yeah, I listened to like the Bahamas, we had this music festival called Rifflandia, which was like some artists, bands, musicians who would come in September, right when school started, and all the students would go, and it would be like outdoors and stuff, and it was very much like West Coast,
Yeah. Set up the slack line. And,
Yes. Slacklining, juggling, hacky sack. Always a guy with a guitar at every single party. There'd be like multiple dudes with guitars all competing for the one guitar.
Yeah.
They didn't have enough guitar. There was one guitar and multiple dudes like patiently waiting in line to be the guitar guy. And they all have their own like Mumford and Son rendition of Wonderwall or whatever. And so like dorm parties, house parties, all of that. That was like my first year of college was that. And at that point, I very much felt like I was like a BC guy, which is an identity in itself because it doesn't necessarily translate once you leave the west coast of Canada.
No, I think there is like like some big cultural difference if you're from BC versus if you're from what's the one where there's all the like oil
Edmonton, Alberta. Yeah,
Edmonton, Alberta, and then even the East also, right? It's,
for sure.
Yeah.
We had a lot of people from Alberta in Victoria at the school I went to, and yeah, like they were all basically in Calgary. There's the Calgary Stampede, big like cowboy event. Basically, I've never been, but there's a lot of these Stampede characters at my school who like they were. The rolled up plaid shirt with the jeans and the belt buckle and stuff. And that was like their party outfit,
And how did they mesh with the like juggler
I don't
BC?
think they liked me very much. I was also like at the time I was really into improv.
Okay.
And I coming from also like Richmond, where it's like very much it was very competitive, and just the I guess the nature of how Asian the community was, it was very academics driven, and everybody was very, very competitive. So in order to find my niche, I became a theater kid.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was like into
You're like,
drama.
basketball's not working out.
I had to quit basketball because I was like, I didn't grow. I stopped growing, and so at one point I'm like, this is ridiculous. At this point, what am I doing? So I had to find a new identity, and I joined theater. And I wasn't a good actor. No, not at all. Like I got the smallest parts, man. I was girl mouse in Cinderella. There was two roles. There's boy mouse and girl mouse, and the teacher kind of just left these up to me and another friend because she gave all the important roles away, and she's like, I don't care. And I looked at the script and I saw girl mouse has 7 lines and boy mouse had 3 lines. I was like, I'll be girl mouse. I'll take this one for the team. And all the theater kids were like, wow, he's so brave.
Interestingly, at my high school, the theater kids were like the popular kids.
What?
Like they were like I went to like a very kind of, I don't know, progressive hippie school.
Okay,
and,
that
like,
makes sense.
At some point, the football team came out with this like poster where they were all like posing in their uniforms with like, and then they were like giving it away or selling it to raise money for the team with the schedule. And then the theater kids like made like a parody poster of them in like absurd costumes doing it, and it became like an issue where the football team was like, we're being bullied by the theater kids. And the theater kids were like, that was like the cool thing. It was like, you got to be in the theater.
Oh my God. They were all doing like satire already at like 16 years old. They were like, to be a football player, what does it mean? It's crazy. No, we were definitely not like that. It was geeks. It was like theater geeks. It was a lot of gay kids, LGBTQ and all kinds of misfits basically.
And did you love acting or did you like
I loved acting. I loved acting. I was like, Stanislavski says that it's all about your intention. Like I would like read different articles and like watch interviews with actors, and I
James Lipton?
Who's James Lipton?
Inside the Actors Studio?
Oh no.
Okay,
no.
this was like
Maybe.
Yeah, Will Ferrell used to do him on SNL.
Okay.
Anyways.
Yeah. I loved all of it, and I would stay like, so school ended at 3 p.m. or whatever, and like a bunch of the theater kids would stay in the theater after school, and we would stay there till like 9 p.m. My homework was getting left behind.
Yeah.
Like
I gotta run these lines.
We weren't even doing that. We were just like BSing around doing improv. Sometimes we had like a play or something, and then it would get ridiculous. Then we would stay till like 10 p.m. Our theater teacher was also like really intense too. She would like run rehearsals like every day, pretty much Monday to Friday. And when we had to play, it was like 7 hours after school ended until 10 p.m. sometimes.
Jeez.
Yeah, and she was like, she would yell at us and stuff. And
did you like her? Was that part of the appeal? Or
at first, and then all of us started to hate her. We would like kind of stage coups against her, like you know, because me and my friend, we had such small roles in it. In Cinderella, for example, she would also make us be the people who would like bring the objects onto the stage.
The
like stage
set pieces or whatever.
Yeah, and so if we didn't do it fast enough, say the lights went down, the next scene was about to start, and we didn't bring the stage pieces fast enough, she would like go again, and it,
like a football coach.
Run it again, 7 seconds or less. Yeah, so one time there was a kid who was like 10 minutes late to rehearsal, and then she made him watch the play. Like, he wasn't allowed. It was me, actually. But
wait, really?
Yeah, that kid was me. I was like, oh, this is too sad. Never mind. So I had to like watch the play from the audience with my friends because I was late. So she was intense. Yeah.
And you're like, but what are they gonna do without the female mouse?
Yeah. Yeah, just cut the lines.
That's okay. That's crazy. But you guys were already doing improv exercises within that, and like doing some were you
No. So she was anti-improv. She was like, stick to the script, and so
that's not real acting.
Exactly. So part of the coup was like improvising. I would like. So one of my lines I was supposed to enter on was I don't remember. It was like, "Don't forget about me" or something like that. I will always remember. So every night I would do it differently, and one night the person who said the line before me, when I was supposed to enter, they said the line, and I waited for like a solid 7 long seconds before entering, and everyone's like, what's happening? And then I came up very slowly, and I was like, don't forget about me, like that, which is very different from how I did it every other night. And I could just hear like my teacher in the background.
But did it get like a laugh from the audience?
Yeah, definitely. It's just the timing was so messed up that like everyone knew that I wasn't supposed to do that. And so then the other coup that we did was you're not supposed to change how you look. You know,
right.
You're supposed.
Yeah.
But then every year at our high school, there was a charity that came to our school that like for cancer. So they would do haircuts. It was a salon basically.
Yeah.
And so you can get your hair donated if you have long enough hair, or you can just show solidarity if you do have short hair and you can shave it. And so like I convinced everybody in our theater to all the boys to like shave their heads
in solidarity.
In solidarity. I'm like, this is for cancer research. Yeah. And they're like, no, we're doing this because we hate their teacher.
That's awesome. You're like, but we can hide behind the fact that it's solidarity.
If we showed up, all
what
of us
do you hate cancer?
Yeah, come on, man. Come on. You gotta have some heart, you know.
Yeah.
We showed up to rehearsal. All of us are like bald, and she's like, what happened? And we're like, it's for a good cause. And then
you're like, cancer.
It's awesome. There's a photo in my yearbook where all of us are like, you know, we're taking the bow, and the teacher is with us on stage, and all of our heads are like reflecting the light from the stage. It's awesome.
Did she have a meltdown? Like, how did she react to this?
She was just like, I wish you would have told me, guys. And we're like, well, it was advertised in the school newspaper. What? Don't you read the new school paper? Yeah, and then another time we had an improv group that she like oversaw, even though she wasn't leading it.
Yeah.
And so one time she canceled because she couldn't do it after school or something. And so I was like, well, the studio is still open, so we can do it. And so I ran it, and then I guess somebody told her that I ran the improv group without her, and she confronted me about it. She's like, "You're trying to replace me." I'm like, "How am I going to replace you? You're a teacher
You're an adult
with a salary."
Yeah, I'm 17.
Yeah. So there was like a lot of animosity there for sure.
Yeah. That's hilarious. And they're also like, they were probably like, and he did a great job. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, it was improv.
So, but that first, like that early improv stuff you were doing, was that were you already kind of like getting into this thing of like, ooh, getting laughs? Or
I always liked getting laughs as validation. Like the first time I did any theater was in Israel. I was like in grade 5, and there was this director guy who came to our school, and he did something about bullying or peer pressure or something like that, and he cast a bunch of the kids, and so I was in it, and there was a section where we would replay some of the scenarios that we did in the play, but this time we would pause and people in the audience could like ask questions and we could improvise. And I remember I just answered everything in like a funny way, and I would get laughs. And I remember that was like the first time.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm addicted to this.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then same thing. We when in Canada in grade 6, Mr. Takasaki, he did some sort of thing for the younger kids in the elementary school, where like the grade 6 class would present like short stories to the, and same thing, I would like do everything for a laugh, even if it wasn't supposed to be. That was my jam. And then in high school it just translated, you know.
And were you already like aware of stand-up at this point, or
like I knew what stand-up was?
Yeah.
And even in Israel, there was like a show that was like kind of like Last Comic Standing that I would watch religiously, and I loved it, but I wasn't aware that that is something you could do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Course.
And then Louis C.K. blew up when I was like in grade 9 or 10, and so like his first like half-hour special, where he's like complaining about his daughter.
Oh yeah.
And so like we would watch that religiously in the Dave Chappelle special and stuff. So I was aware that there's these stand-up comedians and that they're famous, but I didn't know any Canadian stand-up comedians. Even though like something would flash on my screen sometimes from like Just for Laughs or something, and I knew that Just for Laughs was in Montreal, but I didn't know that that guy was Canadian or that there's a scene or anything. Like none of that.
But like, since you were connected to this improv thing, were you like more connected with? Because I mean, I think like when I think about like me getting into comedy, like I think one of the biggest things that like really blew my mind is like when the Chappelle Show came out. I don't know, I can't remember how old I was, but I was probably 11 or 12, and I mean that was like, you know, boom, exactly. So, and before that, I was. My godparents, we would always stay up on Saturdays and watch SNL, and like these were still the days where like Will Ferrell was on the cast and like that kind of thing. So did you have connection to that stuff at all?
I would, at the point where I started looking at that stuff, because it took me a year till my English got fluent, you know, I was already like 12, 13, 14, and at that point there's already YouTube. So I would watch it on YouTube. I wouldn't, like I said, there's no TV culture.
Yeah.
So because none of my friends would watch TV, I couldn't like talk about these things with them.
Totally.
But with clips, like you could send it.
Yeah.
So, you know, Russell Peters blew up, but I didn't see him on TV, even though he was on Canadian TV. I didn't see him on TV. I saw him on YouTube. Yeah. And so I started, you know, sharing clips. We would send clips to each other. Look at this. Look at that. There was a comedic musician, Steven. He has really funny songs. Hitler mustache. He has.
He's like who came out in that
era.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So we loved that guy, and we would share all his songs, and all the theater kids. We would just sing his songs all the time. And then we also really liked the Westboro Baptist Church. They made songs. Do you know this?
No. What?
Yeah, they made horrible songs and super like anti-gay songs, but because everyone in the theater was like, you know, either a gay kid or like had a gay mom or something.
Yeah.
And so all the gay kids ironically would sing the Westboro Baptist Church songs.
That is hilarious.
Yeah. So we were like, you're all going to hell, you know, like we would just sing them in theater.
But you guys could probably do it in like a 3-part harmony or something.
I wasn't talented, so I couldn't, but I would participate in fun. Yeah. So like YouTube became huge. Also comedic YouTubers. Like I was aware of comedic YouTubers and as like a potential career before it even became a career. Like Ray William Johnson. You know,
I don't know him,
he was like a big YouTuber when I was in grade 9, 10. And I knew that that's all what he was doing because he had a vlog that he talked about. He was like in school and he quit school and he was doing that. I was like, oh, that's something that I could do. And I didn't. one of my many regrets. Should have started making content. But stand up, I just didn't realize that you didn't already have to be famous, like that you could like start doing it at an amateur level. I didn't realize. And all the people that I saw doing stand up, I'm like, oh, well, yeah, they have a show.
Yeah.
You know, like people already
it's
know
just
them.
a thing that they're doing. There's no like, it's not like there's a path.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. And so when I started doing improv, I didn't even, I knew like whose line is it anyway, but I didn't realize that those guys started doing improv before that. I thought they were actors who then were really good at improv and they had a show.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really until like college actually, where in first year there was like a couple people who were doing improv and stuff, and I was like, oh, you could put on shows and make some money.
Yeah.
And it was in the second year that I started like my own improv group. And we would do like practices once a week and shows like once a month. And it was like by donation. And we would do it at our college and people would come out. And yeah, we were like, we would fundraise a lot of money. And we would basically spend it on going on trips to other universities to do like improv festivals.
Okay.
It was like a student thing.
Yeah.
Right, but just the fact that we could finance it, So
totally.
we would finance our trip to Vancouver, to Seattle. That was really fun. Seattle had a tournament where like a bunch of schools would come, and the champion would go to Chicago. We never won. But it was like so much fun preparing for that and like practicing improv. And I became aware that there's like groups in different cities that were putting on weekly shows with improv and like were packing 50 to 100 seats every week with their improv. And I don't know if they're making a living, but they're making some money. And so like that kind of started the spark. What made the transition to stand-up was whenever I tried to explain to people what improv was, they didn't know. They were like, oh, you do stand-up.
Yeah.
And eventually I got tired of...
I guess I just do stand-up.
I started saying that. I was like, I do stand-up. Yeah, I'm a stand-up. I said that for like a year before I ever thought about going to do stand-up. I just got tired of explaining. So yeah, stand-up. I do stand-up. I do stand-up. And people were like, oh, Dan, he does stand-up. I didn't do stand-up. Yeah. And so eventually I'm like, shit, people
But
probably...
were there other people in your improv group who were also like, that were like doing stand-up or...
There was one guy who was kind of in the same boat who like was wanting to do stand-up and had to like tell people that he does stand-up because nobody knew what improv was. And so the two of us were like, we should probably just try doing stand-up. And so there was one open mic. There was like a weekly open mic, but only 3 weeks out of the month in the town that I lived in.
Okay.
In Victoria. Yeah. So you had 3 chances in a month to do 3 minutes. Because there were so many, there's like 20 people.
Of course.
Yeah, and everyone sucks because we don't have any stage time. So, well, obviously, because there's not that much demand, right? So we would, and just to tell you how much stand-up grew, in that town in Victoria, there is now an open mic every day of the week, and there's also a club. There was a club even back then with a professional headliner show. So every night of the week in Victoria now you can go and do stand-up.
Oh, wow.
So that was when I was in college. That was like, I don't know, 2013, 12 to 2018. I was there for a long time. Took me a long time to decide what I wanted to do. And then I didn't even end up doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I wanted to do YouTube, but that wasn't...
I actually studied at first business, then I was undeclared, then I went into computer science, and I ended up doing like a combined degree, computer science and psychology.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you start going, what was the very first, I'm always interested, I love people's like first open mic.
Yeah. So the very first time that I
experiences.
went, I was 18. It was a open mic at our school. It wasn't even the mic that I'm talking about in the town. It was like a music open mic at our school. Mm-hmm. And I went and I put on a blazer. And I didn't have very many jokes. It went all right. People were very supportive. And then I didn't really do it again, but we had Model United Nations at our school, which is like fake United Nations. I guess United Nations is fake United Nations. But we had a school trip with my university to do Model United Nations in New York. And the school kind of like paid for most of the trip, and we got to stay at the Marriott in Times Square.
Oh, shit.
And so outside of the Marriott in Times Square, there's all these guys who are like barking.
Yeah.
And they're like, come see stand up, come see stand up. And I just started talking to one of these guys in New York. I'm only there for a week. And I'm like, where can I go do an open mic? And he gave me a website where all the open mics were at the time. And so I just started skipping on my, because Model United Nations is very intense. It's like 3 times in the day. You had like a session in the morning, then you had a break for lunch, then you had a session after lunch, and then you had a session after dinner as well. It's really intense.
And you have in Model United Nations, they give you like a basically like a fake crisis, right? Like
So
my only reference for it is the episode of Parks and Rec when there's Model United.
Yeah, I was. Our whole school was representing Thailand. Each school got a different thing,
okay.
and
Which was sick because you loved pad thai. You're like,
I love Thai food. Yeah, I love what do you call it? The martial arts.
yeah,
Yeah,
that one.
that one.
It's the kickboxing
Yes,
one. Muay
yes,
Thai.
Muay Thai.
Yeah.
I love Muay Thai. I love.
Which sounds Spanish and Thai.
It's like
It's
very Thai.
Muay Thai.
Very very Thai.
Yeah.
And what else? I like transgender people. No.
I love prostitutes. No. But so you guys were representing Thailand in this thing,
And my topic that first of all you had to write a paper to even get in, and my topic was the Commission on the Status of Women. So like I was supposed to do like women's rights,
Yeah.
and by the second day I started skipping all the meetings, and I was starting to go to like these daytime open mics in New York.
were the people who were on your like team or whatever, were they like pissed? Like, dude, where were
At
you?
first they were like, "Where were you?" And I was like, "So I have a dream." And they're like, yeah, all of us have a dream. We want to be in the UN. And I'm like, no, you don't understand.
My dream is actually it's just as selfish as yours. No, but so you're like skipping and you're going, and so what was that experience?
Oh, like I was bombing horribly. It's just comics,
Yeah.
It's daytime open mic.
But did you have that feeling of like, holy shit, I'm in New York?
Yes.
Comedy.
Yes,
like,
for sure. I told everybody back home that like these were packed rooms and there were competitions that I was winning and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I'm a star. And then I came back home and I didn't do stand up again. For like 2 years. I didn't do any stand up. So that week in New York, I did like 5 daytime open mics. I felt on top of the world. And then I came back home and there was no more immediacy to it. Because in New York, it was just like easy,
Yeah.
And I came back to Victoria. And again, there was that one open mic where you get 3 minutes and it happens 3 times a month. And they also had a topic that you were encouraged to write about. And so that was like a huge block for me. I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I ignored it for 2 years. I continued doing improv very much, and I was really into improv, and I really wanted to, be like like a UCB guy, basically.
Yeah.
I really wanted to move to the States and go to UCB. That was like my dream at the time. And when I finally went to that 3-minute open mic, it was with my friend who was in my improv group.
The other one who was a stand-up.
And he crushed, like just insane, and I bombed. And that was like really crushing to my spirit.
And did he crush because he had great energy, or was like the joke writing good?
He's
or
brilliant. He's one of those people who really, I don't understand why he quit. He is one of those people who, like, after less than a year of doing it, he had 20 minutes of like crusher stuff. Just
shit.
Brilliant guy, and he could do like all these things, like characters. He could do just straight up joke, everything. And so like that was intimidating. And I think I was kind of like in his shadow. And then he quit stand up after like a year or something. Mm-hmm. And then I started getting better right away because I was no longer like trying to imitate what he started to do.
Totally.
Yeah.
But at this point, you're still just doing these 3-minute sets in Victoria.
Yeah.
And did you feel like, did you feel like, oh, I'm making like, did it feel like you were making progress, or what?
It really took like a year of these 3-minute open mics 3 times a month until I started feeling like, okay, I have like 3 minutes of good jokes now or whatever.
Yeah. And I imagine also with something like, because I've been to what I imagine is a similar type of open mic where it's like, it's also a lot of the same people coming back.
For sure,
after
yeah.
week, which makes it like, how do you fine tune a joke if they already know?
Yeah. It was very difficult. I wasn't getting much better week after week. I would say a lot of the times it was like you're just trying to. There was like one booked show after like 6 months of doing it. There was one booked show, and we were just trying to impress the comedians to try and get on that booked show. So yeah, it wasn't very good. And about a year of doing that, because my friend quit, I started like doing it more differently. Like I wasn't trying to do like these crazy wacky characters basically, which is what he was doing. He was like very absurd, and I started trying to just like speak like myself. And so then I wasn't any funnier, but I would sound more like what I sound regularly now. And probably another year, and then eventually there was like another weekly mic, so I was able to get twice. And like that really helped. And after 2 years of doing it, I had like 10 minutes of material. And some of it, like there's like one joke that I still do today that I still like. So that was like the start.
Do you think that because I also like the character thing or the kind of going for this more absurd thing when you started, do you think that was also partially influenced by the fact that you came from this improv background? For sure. I was looking for like the bit. So whatever the bit was, the setup doesn't matter. It's like say something and then do a complete 180 turn and then like yes and that turn to a ridiculous amount, which worked for my friend but didn't work for me, So like he had this great joke. You've probably heard some iteration of this where he's like, he goes on stage and he goes, "Thanks for coming out, you guys. Thank you so much for coming out. You didn't have to come out. It's very brave." And he would make it like the audience is very gay. And he would just like, yes, and that to infinity. Where at the end of it, he's gay, everyone's gay, and they're all jacking off, Yeah.
And so like that was his style and it worked right from the start. And for me, I tried to do a very similar thing and like didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
then, you leave Victoria and
I didn't.
You didn't. Okay.
I stayed there because of school. I did 7 years of school because I kept switching majors, and then I was like a part-time student. I was working at like a ESL center.
Okay.
I was like 23, 24. I was working at an ESL center, and I was pretty much full-time, like 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
And I was doing school part-time, dragging it on. At that point, the scene started to grow a bit. I was getting up like 3 times a week. I was getting better, and I was starting to get some spots in Vancouver now. And so I would go over once in a while. And
at this point, are you like, is it in your, because you said like, God, the dream was like move to the States, do UCB,
Yeah.
So it was always in your head to some level of like, oh, I want to like, pursue this as a way to, I want to make my life about this.
Yeah, but I needed a day job that would not be working at an ESL center, that would like facilitate my life at a bigger city. In Victoria, I could work at an ESL center, but like if I wanted to move to Toronto, which eventually I did, I was like, I need a day job,
Yeah.
And to get a day job, I need to finish my degree, so I have some qualifications. So I finished my degree, and I met my girlfriend. We were living together my last year in Victoria, and
your girlfriend is German.
No.
This is a previous girlfriend.
No. She's not German. This is the same girlfriend. But she's half Czech, half Algerian.
Okay.
And her family lives in France, close to Luxembourg. So Europe was just like a way to get closer geographically to her family, but Berlin was the choice because of the amount of stand-up there is here.
Yeah.
So when we moved to Toronto, we both finished our degrees.
So did she grow up in Canada or?
No, I met her at the ESL school. She came to do like an English program, but she was already fluent.
Yeah.
So she was, right after that, she just started doing her master's basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So she went like from one thing to the other, and then she became a master's student, and then she was just a regular student. Mm-hmm. So then when she finished her master program, that was the time I finished my bachelor's, and we moved to Toronto.
Okay.
And that was like really the start of me going hard with stand-up.
But you guys part of the reason you moved to Toronto was you were like, this is where I could really like pursue stand-up more. Yeah,
it was either Vancouver or Toronto, and like I grew up in Vancouver, so I just wanted something different.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So in Toronto, you can get up, as many times as you want in a day, The only thing is, it's kind of like New York, which is like in the open mics, it's just comedians. And a lot of times it's like 4 comedians, 5 comedians. It's not like in Berlin where you have all these people watching you. So in Toronto, it was very difficult the first year to get in front of people. So what I started doing, I started looking at like music mics or like spoken word mics. And I would go to like the spoken word slam. And I would just do my jokes like poems. Like I would be like, I am very poor, you know. My living expenses are so bad, I can't even afford to die, you know, like stuff like that. Yeah. And one time I actually like
I was living in squalor.
Yes, exactly. My grave, I need my roommate, you know. I won second place at the poetry slam.
Yeah.
I won some money from doing my jokes as a poem.
Really?
I was very happy. Yeah, I was like,
Well, I mean, a good, like, if you just do your jokes as a poem, that's a super good poem.
Yeah.
I laughed, you know?
Yeah, for sure. That's how I felt. I was like, well, I deserve it. I changed my whole style for you guys.
Yeah.
Give me that money. So that felt really good. And like, that actually gave me a lot of confidence because the spoken word scene there is huge and you're playing in front of like 150 people. So you're getting up and it's like very quiet and they're expecting you to do a poem. And then when you get a laugh, it's even larger than stand-up because they're not expecting to make it. And the laughs are like followed by snaps and claps. And it's like, I was like, oh man, like that night, I think kind of like elevated me.
Yeah.
It gave me so much confidence. And so then I started getting some more like booked spots and I started producing a show with a friend. It was like like a booked open mic where we like had acts that we liked, that we knew were good, but we weren't charging a door price and people could just work out material.
Yeah.
And so that like, because of that, I met other people who were producing shows. And so after like a year of being in Toronto, I was like, getting up on stage at like in front of audiences and doing well and started doing some out of town gigs, a little bit of paid work. And I had a day job at the time. I was working in IT.
And was that hard to balance?
Yes, for sure. Like often I would be at my day job from like 9 till 6 because I was slow, you know, and then you need to like finish up when you're doing it. And so then your mics are like at 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 p.m. and you're exhausted from your day job and you didn't write any jokes. So then you're like scrambling to write jokes on your subway ride home. And yeah, like I was living off of like the 15, 20 minutes that I created during my 4.5 years in Victoria of doing stand-up. Like those 15 or 20 minutes, I was like, the first year in Toronto, I was like living off of that material. Mm-hmm. Like I was creating very little new material and just like, you know, towards the end of the year, I was like, oh shit, the comedians already heard these 15 to 20 minutes. And so in the second year, I started writing more and it became better. And I even got like a showcase for Just for Laughs. And I was able to like go up in front of the booker who like books it. I didn't get it, but like I had a good set and like, it was like one of the iconic venues, the Rivoli in Toronto. It was really old. It shut down because of the pandemic. Yeah, there was like in business for 25 years. And there's like a lot of really famous people who got their start at that venue. And yeah, that's where the showcase was. And it was like packed, 150 people. And I had a great set. And I got to talk to the booker and like very brief, but like it gave me a lot of confidence. Mm-hmm. And so going into my second year in Toronto, I was like, that's what I was working towards, was like getting another showcase.
Yeah.
And then like February rolls around, 2020, the pandemic happens, and it changes everything.
Yeah.
Because during the pandemic, I had a day job. I was working, but I started just kind of seeing what other people who are like living in Canada who are more successful than me, like what their situation was, and realizing that even without the pandemic, it's just very difficult to tour in Canada unless you go to the States. And I was realizing that in order to go to the States, like as a stand-up, you need all the credits as a Canadian that you can possibly get. You need like Just for Laughs, you need some TV appearances, blah, blah, in order to get a visa. Or you need a day job, which I had a day job, but I was like, I don't imagine myself with a day job going to like New York or LA,
Yeah.
and then being able to do stand up in night, because then it would just be the same thing as in my first year in Toronto. So during the pandemic, my plans started changing, and I was like thinking more about Europe or maybe the UK, and that's how like Berlin came up on my radar. I was like, I can go over there and start building like small tours basically,
Yeah.
and start making a living without competing for these credits,
Yeah.
for like just for laughs or anything like that, or even like still submit online, you know, without having the in-person showcase, but like
Yeah.
send a tape in, and get tons of stage time, because there's a lot of stage time here, and not have to have a day job because the cost of living is smaller and there's opportunities to make money through stand-up. So that's what brought me here.
So, okay, a couple questions. One, this phase where you moved to Toronto, you're working this 9 to 6, then you're going to mics at night. How did you balance that with your relationship? Like, has that ever, like, is that a problem? Is that something
For
that
sure.
you guys had to, like, figure out?
We haven't figured it out yet. It's very difficult. In Toronto, you know, we didn't know anybody yet. I had some friends, but because of that, it was easier at the beginning. We were just always together. And in the first year, because I wasn't getting any book shows at comedy spaces, because I was going to these spoken words and music events,
It was like fun for her to
fun,
come still.
fun. You
Yeah.
see musicians, some very talented people.
It's not just the same 6 comedians doing all of the jokes that you've already seen.
Exactly.
And,
And then in the second year, it was a little bit more difficult, and it was starting to become a drag, and then the pandemic happened.
yeah.
So that kind of gave it, a breather. But then when we came to Berlin, is what you're describing. It's like we're hanging out and we're spending time together, but it's like difficult for her to see the same acts over and over and over.
course.
And
It's difficult for me to see the same acts over and over. And I'm like, this is my dream.
for sure. And it's kind of like, this is now my job. I don't have a day
Yeah.
job. This is all I do. And so it's kind of like bring your wife to work, kind of,
Yeah.
you know? So that's what we're kind of trying to figure out, a balance. Yeah. Right now we've decided that like, unless I have a paid gig on the weekend, I try not to do mics. So unless it's like a paid gig, or one that I'm producing.
Yeah.
Monday to Friday is like my work week, where it doesn't matter what kind of gig, but that's when I go hard.
Yeah.
And I try to squeeze in as much as I can Monday to Friday. And often, like, she will come with me or something like that, but we have an agreement that, like, this is like my work, and you're welcome to come hang out in my office type of thing, you know?
Yeah.
But, like, that's the situation.
Well, that's also the thing, like with Anya and I, because I feel like it's like trying to find that balance, and like it's an adjustment. And the other thing about it is like, it's not, for me at least, at the point, I feel like I'm still very early in the process. I'm still at the point where it's like, if I have a gig or like a spot, even at an open mic that night, it's not even just that like at the show, it's like an hour before the show or 2 hours before the show, I start to become less fun to hang out with, because I'm like, you're thinking about it. You're kind of trying to write, you're preparing,
it's very
and you're
difficult.
like, you're not present in, whatever you're doing together in that
sure.
moment.
Yeah, so I try, like, at a certain point in nighttime, I just turn off my phone, and I'm like, no more phone, so that I don't think about gigs or anything like that. So, stuff like that. But yeah, it's like a negotiation, and I think it only gets more difficult the older you get, especially once you have kids and stuff like that.
Totally.
Yeah, so that's what we're trying to figure out, is like, how do you become a working comic and make sure that you're spending enough time at home,
Yeah.
because it's a night job.
Yeah. That is the other thing I think about, is like my best friend, his girlfriend, they've been together for like 10 years. So, but she works as like like when you call 911, basically, I don't know, I can't think of the name right now, but like that's the person who then calls the fire department or the police department, and she works nights. And I was like, it isn't the only job where the scheduling is kind of like if you're a pilot, you know, it's also like it makes it hard. But
You're
people figure
echoing
it out.
all my arguments right now. I'm like, you don't understand, baby. I'm a pilot. I'm flying this comedy plane.
I gotta land this thing.
And you're in my ear the whole time. I'm gonna crash. All these people are gonna burn. And she's like, they're not even paying for the flight.
Some of them seem to not even want to fly. Some of them wish they took a train. Yeah. Okay, so the other question I wanted to ask about that, and we should probably wrap up here already. But
We're not gonna do this.
I mean, we could do this maybe at the end here. But so the last comedy thing I wanted to ask you about is you were talking about that first year you're in Toronto and you're doing these open mics and it's mostly like comics, not a lot of audience. And
also not a lot of comics often because there's so many open mics the same day, the same time. It might have like 7 open mics across the city. All the comics might be at different open mics. There's ones that are like popular showcase for other comedians open mics where all the comics are there, but then you're also waiting forever and a pro might drop in to work on some new material and then you're getting bumped. So it's like an insane way to try and develop.
Yeah. Okay. So that was my question because I've done stand up in San Francisco and it was very similar to what you're describing. And even recently I was just I'm part of one of these like Facebook groups for San Francisco comedians, and someone posted like, how do you do the Sunday open mic at Cobb's, which is like the big comedy club.
Yeah.
And
I've seen the special with Zach Galifianakis at Cobb's, right?
It's at the Purple Onion.
Purple Onion, yeah.
Yeah. Which funny story is where I first
You opened for him.
Yeah, I opened for Galifianakis for a while. I was just, I was the piano actually. No. But I was reading the thing, and the guy who runs it wrote this thing about like, what do you do? And he was like, you come the first Sunday and you pay like you're a customer. You introduce yourself, and then you just keep coming every Sunday for the next 3 to 9 months.
Yeah, I'd rather kill myself.
And I'm like, how? Like, what an insane way. And so for me, like starting, like then I did comedy when I was like 22 in San Francisco, and then I started here November 2019. I had 2 months here, and I was like, this is amazing. The second time I ever did it was at Cosmic, and I was like, I shit my pants because I was used to open mics. Like you go, I thought there's gonna be 6 comedians here. The first one I did, it was like that. There was like 5 audience members, it was very chill. And then I show up the second ever time, and I'm like, there's 40 people here. Like I'm unprepared. Like,
that's what I mean. Like it's a great place to get a lot of stage time and develop in Berlin because there's audiences that you can go up in front of, and you can start putting on shows in other cities that are close by because transit is so much better. You have the trains and stuff. And so it's much easier to go out and put on a show. And you're not competing with like brand names because even the brand names in Germany are not doing it in English. You know? So like part.
But that's my question is because I feel like if you listen to comedians talk about, comedy, whatever, a lot of times they say like, it's like, you have to have those like grinded out comic only whatever, and from my experience I feel like if you have an audience there you can so much more quickly figure out what actually is a bit. So I was just wondering like what is your take? Do you wish like, I wish I could have come over here earlier?
Yes.
Or okay.
Yes, I wish I could have come over here when I was 21. Yeah, like leave school and come here and develop
a YouTube
here.
Channel.
And start a YouTube channel, and reach out to Gali.
We miss you, Gali.
No, I'm so sorry if she's. So
my reach isn't that big. I'm not big in Israel, so
not yet. Not yet. These pro-Palestine views are gonna bring you the right audience. Definitely, because it's crazy. It makes sense that it's crazy in the big North American cities because English is the language, and so there's tons of demand and supply, and so it makes sense that that's how you're gonna compete. And it also makes sense that that's how you're going to outcompete somebody. But in terms of like your own personal development, you versus yourself, I think it's much better to develop here, and better for your like mental health as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're definitely gonna learn how to do better than the other open mic comics in North America. So if you were to then from here go over to San Francisco and start grinding it out, even though you might be a more well-rounded, more developed comedian out here, you might not be used to that environment of like trying to make 3 people laugh, you know?
Yeah.
It's like a completely different tool, and I would say a useless tool. Like,
well, that's my whole, I think, my thing is like, so like I started when I was 22, and then I had this like 8-year break. You know, I did it for, when I say I started when I was 22, I did it for like 8 months, you know, but, and then I started again at 29, 4 months before the pandemic started. And, but I'm 32 now. I just turned 32, and I'm like, it's like late if you really wanted to like make this dream.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you, for me, my goal, I'm turning 29 in June. My goal is to make a living as a comedian, as a job. You know, I'm not interested in becoming a star. I'm saying, like, when I worked in IT, I made between 40 to 50K. That's I never wanted more. I've always, even during that time, I was very happy with that. Especially if, you know, your partner makes as much. I think in Europe, in this kind of city like Berlin, it's totally fine, you know? So that's my goal, and I feel like that's achievable even if you start at 35 even, because, you know, you need about a year or two of like, you know, going up a lot, and then you start putting on your own shows, and you start trying to make money, and then you just grow that like you grow any other business, from the ground up.
Yeah, which I agree. And like, it's not like my goal is like, I'm not like, oh, I want to like be on SNL or like have a show, you know.
I also think more money, more problems, you know.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. On the other hand, what I love about comedy that I wasn't expecting when I got into it is it's like, I'm a low-key competitive person.
For sure.
And like I used to do distance running, and it's remarkably similar in this thing where you're competing against other people, but ultimately you're always, the person you're competing against the most is yourself.
Yeah.
And that fires me up. And so, yeah, on a financial side, like the goal is just, if I could do what I'm doing now, which is like do stand-up, make a podcast, make some sketches that I put on the internet, and I could not have to do fishing anymore, I would be like, I've made it.
Yeah.
You know? On the other end, like the self-competitive side of me is like, I want to be good. Like, you know, the feeling of
you want to be the best comedian you can be.
Yes. And not even, what I notice is it's like, sometimes I'll have good shows and I'm like, oh, I like did well, but you're like, that's still like, that wasn't killing. You know, like the.
I'm always killing, so I have no idea what you're talking about. But
No, but I mean, like, you know, if you see like a professional like a really, you know, like when I was in Barcelona, I saw Michelle Wolf.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's another tier.
Yeah.
You know, that's on another level.
For sure.
And so it's like, I don't need the success of like, oh, a special or something, but it's like, I want to know that feeling of like going into a room and being able to kill on that level.
But I think you can kill on that level. Like, even like at the point where you're performing right now, like imagine yourself on the best night with a room full of people who are like your fans, and you're doing material that they haven't heard yet, and it's fresh enough even for yourself. Like maybe it's material that you've worked on for like 4 or 5 months that you are still very excited about it, and you are just hitting everything. If you can like visualize that, that means it's within grasp.
Yeah, that fair. Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's Michelle Wolf. Like,
Yeah.
except she's working on completely new jokes or
Yeah. Well,
Or-
it's just
yeah.
also, it's like, it's, you know, when you see someone, you're like, holy shit, that's so funny. And then the take, you know, like your perspective on this subject that you're talking about is like, oh, fuck, that's so good. I didn't think of it that way.
for sure.
You know?
For sure. She's like a very smart and hilarious, unique perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, so I feel like we've come to
The wheel.
The wheel.
Yes.
The wheel. We've already done almost an hour and a half, so
Oh, Jesus,
we could
sorry.
we could spin the wheel. Do you feel like it, you know, before we spin the wheel, you said everything you want to say about your comedy journey?
Yeah, I
Your-
mean, like, I feel like I've probably spoken too much.
Don't worry if you feel like it was too much. Nobody really watches the podcast,
Yeah.
so you have that going for you. But I put this as a little token in the bag, as you know, if you ever blow up, then I can be like, well, you know, I had Dan Belkin
Yeah.
on my.
100%. If I blow up, I'm gonna put your podcast as my I don't know, cover.
Put it up. You can put it on your credits now.
Yeah, why not?
Regular on Patchats.
I'm a regular.
Yeah, I think you should be a regular.
Oh, dude, I love that.
Okay,
All right.
let's fucking spin this wheel.
So, can you explain what some of these
Okay, so I have like, for example, school.
Yeah.
Which is like, do you have a story, like a best or worst memory of something that happened in
see.
school? Philosophy, like, do you have a life philosophy? Childhood, do you have a childhood memory, best or worst? First show, worst show, best show. Characters, we could do like a kind of like a Yas girl or like a super woke hippie.
Okay.
I used to work at a health food store, very BC. So British. I have Russian on there, but that was just because Nikita made me write that on there. But maybe that could.
Okay.
Yeah.
I can do Russian.
Do you want to just do this category?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay.
Let's do
I
it.
don't know if I can do Russian. Should I interview you as a Russian,
Well,
or do you want me?
I think
to-
we should both.
Okay, you
give our
start.
attempt.
You have to start the act. I have to hear it to be able to get into it.
Okay, hello. We are here on Patchats,
It is the #1 podcast sponsored by Adidas
and you can still listen to this podcast in Russia.
in Russia, but not on RT. Not on RT anymore. They took it down. They said too controversial on the Patchats.
That's very nice. You were sponsored by RT.
Yeah, yeah.
That's nice. Very good. I wanted to ask you, Patrick. Patrick, I have a question for you.
Go ahead.
All right. Do you do surfing?
No. I mostly wrestle bear.
You you wrestle bear?
Yeah. Because where I'm from, my town, there's no ocean.
Oh no! You must live a very cold place.
Very cold, beautiful.
Beautiful bear. You listen.
Beautiful bear, beautiful
You
village.
wrestle bear. You make out.
Yeah, I love bear. Bear, my wife.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's nice. That's nice. She's she's a brown bear.
She's a
brown bear.
she's a black bear.
She's a black bear. Oh,
the
very-
black bear a little bit smaller. Better for wrestle.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and
good.
you surf though.
Yes, I am #1 surfer in motherland.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And a lot of competition.
No, I kill all other competition with blazing of because they say something and I didn't. I didn't say nothing.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. This is a Patchat exclusive #1 surfer in all of where
Motherland.
Motherland.
Yes.
Yeah. Da.
Yes.
And you still live in the motherland?
Motherland is in your heart and in your mind. It's a mind state. It's a
Motherland-
state of mind that controls your mind. Yes.
Motherland is philosophy. Motherland is law.
Yes, it's the law that controls your mind state
Yeah.
of mind. Let's do another one.
Okay, let's do another one.
Let's do a different one. Character surfer. Oh, we just did that though.
But it could be like a California.
Oh yeah, bro. Oh yeah.
Dude. All right. Tell me the lowdown. Now I feel like, first of all, so much more comfortable that I'm not doing A, a bad accent, that B, might be racist, because I'm very not into racism, dude.
I feel like I picked up on your vibes, dude, and I was also getting worse in my accent.
I feel like, and I don't want to like make it about me because like I'm like into ego death, but like also I feel like your accent got worse because of me. Like my accent was bringing both of us down, and I'm so sorry, dude.
It's okay. I feel like I was yes-ending your bad accent, and
Dude, I appreciate. First of all, I love people who say yes to things, because no is such a negative word, and I'm like,
just
it's bad
hearing you
vibes.
say it right now, it like,
It hurts.
It brings back a bad acid trip.
Yeah, dude. Oh my God. Like, dude, I was on this acid trip one time, and I was trying to like sit down next to these people at the park, and they said no.
Oh.
And like it just made me totally flip out. I had to like take off my clothes and just scream at them, because it was like that was the energy they were I was just
Why
reflecting
do you
their
even
energy.
come to the park?
Yeah, why would you even like chill at a park on a blanket like a tapestry if you don't want to hang out with me on acid?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like so whack.
It's like having a hacky sack that you don't want to bounce around.
Dude, if you're not hacking your sack, dude, I'm like so beyond these people who are like posts like hacking their sacks. You know, it's just so fucking lame, dude.
Yeah.
But bro, give me the lowdown. Like what's the swell? What's the news? What's the down low on like you and the fam, dog? Like
it's good. I just I invested my parents' inheritance into some really
crypto? Did you get it into the Doge? Ethereum?
CBD.
CBD. Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Dude, honestly, edibles, oils are such a solid investment right now, bro. And like people don't even see it coming. 2028 is going to be a huge year for the cannabis industry. I have all my money in cannabis.
I'm
right
so
now.
happy that you actually chose to use a green screen.
Well, dude, bro, how much of your cannabis did you take? Because you could, if you looked at the screen, it actually has a really beautiful tapestry of design on it.
Dude! Whoa,
dude, you're so high, bro.
Dude! Whoa,
bro, you need to chill.
I thought that was CBD, man.
Dude, that was definitely full THC, dude.
Oh.
That was like 30% THC,
Uh-oh.
guaranteed. You're in for a day, bro.
Oh, man.
We should put on some fucking, like, Suvin Stevens, Cat Stevens, and, like, just chill. Dude.
Yeah.
We should get a dog, bro.
Cat Williams.
Cat Williams, dude.
That's
Cat in the Hat, dude.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I love hats. That was fun.
Okay.
All right.
Well,
That was good.
That was good?
That was good.
That was good.
That was fun.
All right. Well, then I feel like we did it.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
That was super fun. Thank you for coming.
Can I plug my show?
Please plug your show. The links are going to be in the description below, but tell the people.
All right. Well, if you're in Berlin, Wednesday, the 30th of March, there's a storytelling slam, a competition of stories.
I just realized this is not going to come out before your show on Wednesday.
Well,
but
doesn't matter.
we're going to make this a promo. So if you're in Berlin on Wednesday,
you know what?
Tell the people. Tell the people.
Follow me on Instagram at Dan Belkin Comedy.
At Dan Belkin Comedy. It's in the link. And tell them about the show real quick.
It's a storytelling slam. So people tell different kinds of stories, funny, sad, serious, and absurd. And the audience chooses their favorite story.
It's a competition for the storytellers.
Yes.
And storytelling is something that you have shows going around all over Germany, right?
Yeah, well, right now it's Berlin and in Luxembourg, but I'm bringing one to Cologne.
More than one, and bringing one to a third? That sounds like all over Germany to me.
Boom. High five.
High five. Well, thank you so much for coming. This was
Yay!
awesome, man. Yeah.